Hey everybody, welcome to the Mainstream Music channel. We talk about all things indie music. I want to give a quick shout out before we begin. Thank you for all the support that we've had lately on our videos and a lot of the comments on our shorts that we release almost every single day. They mean a lot. They especially in the shorts, they give me a good laugh. A lot of people comment on the coughing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just watch any of the shorts that we've released and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But without further ado, let's get on to the video for this week. The Last Shadow Puppets. We are going to talk about a little bit into their history and, how they formed and so on and so forth. But specifically, we are going to be talking about how the Last Shadow Puppets changed, especially Alex Turner and the Arctic Monkeys, because it has created almost like a domino effect where, what they did in their work as a band forever, I would say, because I don't think the Arctic Monkeys are ever going back to like pre-AM, even a little bit of AM as well, the sound from those albums. I think they've kind of gone full like psychedelic rock now, and I don't know if they're ever going back. And, love it or hate it, and we're going to get into this, in the video itself, but it is changed now. And the Last Shadow Puppets is the reason behind it. So, of course, who are the Last Shadow Puppets? Well, it is Alex Turner, who is the lead singer and performer and brains and heart of the Arctic Monkeys. And it is Miles Kane. Now, they had met together while touring, especially over in England, over in London and in the European scene. And the timing of their meetup and the making of the band is what is crucial here, especially with the timing of the Arctic Monkeys themselves. They had just released, well, not just, but they had done their 2 albums, and they were just starting to work on their 3rd album. Now, of course, if you are an Arctic Monkeys fan, you know how different sounding the Arctic Monkeys have, kind of done over a period of time. It wasn't a drastic, all of a sudden change. It was a gradual change of sound. The first 2 albums are heavy, just your normal 4-piece band, rock band, especially the Arctic Monkeys' very first album. That's pretty much all that you got. You got the 4-piece band. They played at a very fast, quick tempo. And I mean, the album, I should say, is legendary. There is no doubt about that. It is probably the biggest album and most recognizable album from this century. You put a picture of that album cover up, people know almost immediately who you are talking about and what that album is, especially just in the music scene, in general. It is important. But what's interesting, again, a lot of the times when I think of the Arctic Monkeys' evolution, I kind of think, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you want to write it in the comments, I think of their progression as a almost like sped up or 2 times speed example of the Beatles. Because everybody likes the Arctic Monkeys, who likes them, loves their music, and they especially, a large crowd favors those first 2 to 3 albums, and then a lot of them liked AM, right? But a lot of the people that like the deeper cuts also like the Arctic Monkeys' latest albums. And they love the first couple albums. They do. But they like the psychedelic things of the later albums as well. And again, a lot of polarizing opinions about that. Why now, kind of transitioning, can we say that the Last Shadow Puppets is the reasoning behind all that change? Well, when they became a band, both Alex and Miles were huge fans of David Bowie and psychedelic rock. At that time, the Arctic Monkeys were not into the psychedelic rock scene yet. They weren't into synthesizers yet. They had some slow songs, don't get me wrong. It wasn't all like fast-paced songs, but the majority of it was. And they hadn't really merged into that type of music. Now, it's not on the Arctic Monkeys themselves, because what's interesting is Alex Turner himself was afraid up until that moment of forming the Last Shadow Puppets of singing in any kind of different key, especially falsetto. He was very set at keeping his voice kind of that low, steady pace singing and not really trying to stretch it in different directions. Now, another thing is, yes, the Arctic Monkeys had written a lot of kind of storytelling songs. I think of like Fluorescent Adolescent, for example, or Marty Bum, right? But I think The Last Shadow Puppets was really where he started to fine-tune and change his songwriting, where he started to tell stories, where things became more atmospheric and abstract. And again, people will criticize it. They'll say, well, I wish they wouldn't have gone down that road. But again, just like the Beatles, the later albums, they started to experiment. They started to get into different styles of music, different ways of storytelling. And I think Alex finally gained the knowledge and the courage working with the Last Shadow Puppets to try it out for himself. It was more like theater. It was more a mystery kind of way of writing music. And I honestly think if they would not have become a band, I don't know how far the Arctic Monkeys would have gone. I'm not trying to say they are the sole reason behind it, and I'm not trying to say the Last Shadow Puppets is what kind of gave them a second spark, but I personally believe it was a huge reason. But that's just personal. Now, the Last Shadow Puppets also are notorious for just going on long periods of hiatus. I don't think they were ever meant to, for both Miles and especially Alex and the Arctic Monkeys, I don't think they were ever meant to like replace the Arctic Monkeys or anything. It was just kind of like a creative outlet for Alex to kind of enjoy, and then maybe for members of the Arctic Monkeys to enjoy some time off in between albums, whether it was to just take time off or if they had personal projects they themselves could pursue. Currently, they are not a band, but Miles and Alex remain close. In fact, Miles joins the Arctic Monkeys from time to time, making kind of guest appearances on stage. But to end it, what do you guys think of the Last Shadow Puppets? And I'll see y'all next week.